Nizam Jappy has got a target on his back, and I'm sure he knows that. The one loft races most probably the fairest way of racing. Yeah, the biggest mistake that you can do as a beginner is to go for quantity instead of quality. My name's Gerber. I fly a team under Gerber in the Metropolitan Racing Pigeon Club, which is part of the Port Elizabeth Pigeon Federation, forming the Eastern Province Pigeon Union. And we fly out of Lofts, situated in Port Elizabeth.
I'm Christopher Gerber. I fly under Chris Gerber, also in the Metropolitan Club within the EPPU, and I fly with Shane Gerber.
I started pigeon racing long before Christopher started. I started back in 1980 in a southern Free State town called Batuli on the Gerber Dam, where my brother Wayne obtained 2 pigeons. The bug bit over there. We started purchasing pigeons. We only started racing the following year when we were transferred through to Virginia in the northern Free State and participated in the Virginia Racing Pigeon Club. Chris, you started a little bit further after me. You can just elaborate when you started.
I started most probably when I was the age of 8. In Uitenhage. I grew up in Uitenhage. That's where my father brought me into it, and the bug went a bit and carried on, and then we moved to Port Elizabeth, where I didn't race for quite some time, and then after the passing of my grandfather, then I took over from there, and it's just grown closer and closer to me.
2023 was a pretty good year for me. Well, for both of us, for that matter. The 2 teams ended second in the PE Fed, second in the Union. The other team ended third. So we flew 2 teams. We flew second and third in the Eastern Province Pigeon Union and PE Fed. We're still chasing the elusive first place. This is not the first time that we've ended second. We've ended second a couple of times. We've ended third numerous occasions, and we've ended fourth numerous occasions. But 2023, for the second year in a row, one of the 2 teams, well, in fact, both teams were in the top 3 of the PE Fed and the Eastern Province Pigeon Union. So for all intents and purposes, a pretty successful year. As I said, the elusive first place still evades us. Nizam Jappy has got a target on his back, and I'm sure he knows that, not only from ourselves that are going to be chasing him, but the rest of the PE Fed. Very competitive racing, and we look forward to the competition that not only Nazim gives us, but all the other top flyers and top fanciers, and fanciers in general for that matter. My original birds were the De Klerk Janssens and the Smet Matthijses. Unfortunately, over the years, they've been diluted quite substantially. And then a couple of years ago, I managed to obtain birds from Jason Ross. I purchased birds from Jason Ross, who obtained them directly from Tom Locke himself. So the predominant bloodlines that are racing in our lofts last year are the Tom Locke pigeons. Christopher managed to purchase a couple of Sablons, the 810 line. He's been very successful with them, but I'll leave him to elaborate on that. And last year we also performed very well. In fact, in my team, the majority of my pigeons were from Chris Koutsoudis, whose basis is Gabby van der Biele. And them with my Tom Locks really carried us through to the second and third place in the EPPU. Chris?
So yes, as Shane said, Tom Locks. Shane is the Tom Locke guy. He doesn't like looking outside of it. And about 2 years ago at the dye sale, there were a couple of birds on sale of Darnish calls with 810 bloodline, which I purchased for a very, very cheap price. And 2 of the birds have bred outstandingly. The one's mother, 5654, she bred the second place Dino King final last year. She also bred me a triple winner last year. She's bred most probably 5 winners in the last 2 years. So that's mainly mine, the 810 with the Tom Locke line.
Yeah, so here's 2 of our top breeding performers. This is my number 1 cock, 1665, out of the same nest pan. Him and his sister, both double winners. His brother flew us 3 seconds. His brother also won the Sampo National Show for us. This is Tom Locke, out of the son of the 80,000 rand cock. 23597 is its father. Unfortunately, 23597 is now deceased. And but this pigeon babies and blood run thick in our breeding lofts.
So this is my number one in 5654. She is a Tom Lock Blonde, which I purchased at the Dyer's auction from Donnie Scholes. She has bred me numerous winners. Last year alone, she bred me a 3-time winner. She bred the final Dino King last year. Her son was second in the final, was 9th in Hotspot 3, was 16th in Hotspot 4. And yeah, she's still a very young bird. She's only a 2020, and she's got a good future in the breeding loft for us.
Breeding starts, we pair up reasonably late. We start in July, August, pairing the birds up. Christopher likes to pair them up a little earlier. He's got more patience. But I start being a little lazier than Christopher is, and maybe a little bit more aged than Christopher. The enthusiasm wanes, and I paired up a little later in August month. Then I breed through to December. I found that the best pigeons that I have flown over the years is bred between September through to end of November. So those pigeons have proved to be their worth. I try and pair the Tom Locks, when I say Tom Locks pure, Tom Locks amongst the various lines within the Tom Lock family to keep the line going and to race. I found they race exceptionally well, and even better on the cross, because Tom Lock, as you well know, as the pigeons of Tom Lock are already so inbred that they cross very well with birds outside of the family as well. Then training starts on April Fool's Day, the 1st of April. We start with our training. It starts obviously with loft training. We have now by then settled the pigeons. The flights that we have pulled in January have grown out. They've been out, they've been settled, they've come through the molt very nicely. So then we start training them around the loft. As the guys know, the very first couple of days, it's only about 5 or 10 minutes that the birds fly around the loft. But as soon as the birds, and this is unlike a lot of the videos that I've noticed and a lot of the advice that I've given, but as soon as my pigeons fly for the amount of time of 20 minutes, I then take them through to the road. So when we start at 5Ks, start at 20K, then when we jump to 15Ks, 20Ks, 30Ks, and we go right up to 200Ks before the first race. Once they've done that 200K toss, maybe 2 of them, if you can get that in before the first race, then they're ready to go on the first race. But unlike waiting for them to fly an hour around the loft, as soon as they consistently fly for about 20 minutes around the loft, we start taking them to the road. Once we start taking them to the road, we don't train around the loft anymore. We keep going on the road, and we train on the road. Feeding strategy is quite an interesting one. There's so many different types of feed. I used to fly breaking the pigeons down on a weekend. When I say breaking them down, not necessarily giving them a depurative, but a lighter mix on the weekends. On the weekends, predominantly sunflower. I don't feed barley much, although barley is many guys are proponents of barley, but sunflower over the weekends. And then I gradually build them up, giving them a stronger mix on a Monday, even stronger on a Tuesday, stronger on a Wednesday, and then the night of basketing, the strongest of the mixes. So from that particular aspect, that's how I used to feed. Now I'm simply on the Van Roby's mix, introduced to me by the Kutsotis brothers. And we fly on that, on the various Van Roby's mixes, which is the same principle, light feed in the week, getting up through to the energizing type of feed closer to basketing time. So that is basically the feeding strategy. I think it's not very unfamiliar to a lot of other fanciers. We don't measure food. We feed as much as they want to eat now. Previously we used to measure the food. We found that you do extremely well on the shorts and middles, but as soon as you hit the long distance, if you're measuring food, that poses a problem on the longer distances. However, if you take that into consideration, if you feed them as much as they want to eat, you can feed them on a repetitive, you can fly them on a repetitive week after week basis, rather than having to rest a week or two between measured foods. So you're putting petrol into them so that they can really achieve the ultimate on the weekends, and they can perform week after week on that feeding system. Well, my plan for the upcoming season is first to get through the molt as as effortless as possible. I mean, the races could be won and lost in the molt. In fact, it's won and lost in the breeding loft already, but the molt is of particular importance. Should they come through over there and the feathers are great after the molt, we'll then start with the training. Our ambition for 2024 going ahead is to be as competitive as possible, hopefully improve on last year, but at least try and maintain the positions that we flew second and third respectively in the EPPU for 2024 as well. So ultimately the goal is always to improve, whether it be by 1 point or whether it be by 1 position on the previous year's performance, and that is our goal for 2024, simply to improve in our quest for excellence. Well, the upcoming season, we've done nothing different than last season. In the molt, you know, we can give them all the effort they want. We give them a lot of rest. Sometimes open loft once we see they're through the molt. But my pigeons don't fly, or they're not forced flown from the last race through to the first race. We allow them to just roam freely in an open loft situation or open loft condition. The first priority is to get, as I said earlier, to get through the molt, and then once you get them through the molt, make sure that they're healthy, vaccinate them, paramyxo, pox in particular, Newcastle disease. Those are the three inoculations that we do on the pigeons, and once that's done and they're through and there's no pox, there's no illnesses, then we're pretty satisfied with our program on how it's going. And ultimately, we, closer to the time, as I said, on the 1st of April, we start putting them up in the air for longer and longer periods until they're up there for 20 minutes. Then we start on the road. And then from there, it's just, as Christopher says, work, work, work until the last race. South African pigeon racing, it falls into two spheres, of course. You've got the one loft racing, which is becoming more and more prevalent and becoming more and more popular. And then you've also got the normal racing where you're flying to your loft. Whilst we are starting to participate in the one loft races, my preference is still the old-fashioned way of flying to your loft. That is where I get the enjoyment, where you train, where you breed, where you see the fruits of your efforts at home, training under your particular conditions. In the one loft races, most probably the fairest way of racing, where every pigeon is flying to the same loft, same conditions, same feeding, same treatment. So that is most probably the purest form of competition as far as pigeon racing is concerned, with factors the same for all the pigeons, whether it be wind position. That's the old reasons that are really argued as far as whether you are performing well in a particular year. In one loft racing, it's not like that. So one loft racing evens the playing fields for those that can afford to enter the one loft racing, but I still prefer the old-fashioned racing. So ultimately, if I've got a choice of my best bird and I've got to fly it in my team or send it to the one loft race, I would keep it in my own personal team. I find to look at it, to race it, to train it, a thing of beauty. We'll send its brother or sister to the one loft races, and hopefully they perform well because the blood is right. It's just from an aesthetic point of view, your preference, you'd like to fly I do. I like to fly my own pigeons that I like.
Advice to up and coming fanciers, you're going to need to go, as everyone says in all these shows, you're going to have to go look for good pigeons. The top guys aren't, or most of the guys are not going to give you their best pigeons. They're going to come give you pigeons and say, these are theirs, try it out. But those are not the birds that are going to perform for you. Yes, it's going to fill your loft up, but you're going to need to broaden your spectrum, go see which birds are performing in the area that you are flying in, and work around one family or two families. It doesn't help getting birds from 10 different guys, because it's either going to bring sicknesses into your loft, but the birds, you need the right line to fly on top.
Yeah.
And again, hard work. If you're not going to put in the work, then don't expect your birds to be up front every weekend.
Yeah, the biggest mistake that you can do as a beginner is to go for quantity instead of quality. I mean, that will set you back at least 4, 5, 6 years in your endeavors to obtain or to start performing. And when we started, that's the fatal mistake that we made. We loved pigeons. We liked to see big numbers of pigeons instead of concentrating on the quality of pigeon. So over the years, if we go to a sale, we'll buy one pigeon, for instance. The research would be done on that particular pigeon, whereas in the past, you'd go buy 10, 12 pigeons because you wanted the quantity and you thought that at the end of the day, you've got a better chance. So more research goes into it nowadays, and you are more set on quality than quantity. The fundamental error for beginners: don't go for quantity, go for quality. It might take you a year longer to get into racing, but it's going to be a lot quicker than wasting 5 years of your time trying to sort your pigeons out. Yeah, from our side, as far as I'm concerned, we absolutely delighted to have you down here. We thank you for your efforts in growing the sport. Fantastic. The Eastern Cape is a very competitive region. You can see these results of our fanciers in the one loft races. They've done exceptionally well. Don't be surprised to see more ZA OP pigeons on the list. So yeah, thank you. And to all the fanciers, 2024, may your dreams be fulfilled and may you fly many wins.